Welcome to the Purple Political Breakdown. I am glad you are here and I'm glad you are listening to today's podcast episode. My mission in each and every one of these episodes is to really focus on the solutions to some of the biggest questions and most controversial topics going on in our current society. I feel like most of these conversations are not truly being discussed in a more logical and respectful manner due to the political toxicity that goes on with both the left and the right, both the Democrats and the Republicans. In this podcast, I don't care about any of that. I am focused on the solutions. I'm focused on bridging gaps. If you want to join me on this journey, if you want to discuss some of the most important topics, if you are tired of the political toxicity and negativity from both sides, please support this channel, share the podcast, and go to my website, www.purplepoliticalbreakdown.com. I appreciate the support. I'll continue to make content, and hopefully we can start bridging these gaps and focusing on real issues going on in our world. Welcome to the Purple Political Breakdown. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am standing. How are you doing today? We got a video podcast episode finally. It's been so long, and we are here. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do regarding the streaming schedule. I think I will do Monday streams. Thursdays, it's up in the air, but I'll try to figure out something consistent for what I got going on because I've been very, very busy. But with that said, we got a video episode, not audio, video. And how are you doing? This is episode number 75, and today I want to talk about a lot of the political candidates and some of the things that happened as of recently. Now, from my point of view, from the Democrat and Republican candidates, it's very interesting considering all the controversy and drama that has taken place on both sides of the aisle. But with that said, what we're here to do is come up with political solutions without political bias. This is Mindful Mondays, where I give you my honest thoughts about certain topics on the political landscape, social landscape, cultural landscape. So tune in. Also turn into Thursday episodes 8 a.m. where I may have a great guest. Saturday episodes where I go over current events. Now let's dive right into it. Do you want a great website like this? This is my podcast website where I direct the audience to come to, watch the content, listen to the content, read the blogs, and much, much more. If you want to have your own customizable podcast website, then join my affiliate link in my description to sign up for something called Podpage, and they can help you customize an easy podcast website for your personal podcast. Sign up to get a discount now. Again, use the link in my description to join Podpage now. Now, first, we like to kind of warm you up, ladies and gentlemen, with a deep or deeper segment.
Deep or deeper.
Now, deeper question of the day: how far should we try to help people who don't understand? Now, this is a very interesting thing right now. People who don't understand. Now, this is what I mean. I think there's a weird kind of, not weird, understandable notion that people who don't understand your point of view or where you're coming from are just the opposite. They're the enemy. They are evil from my perspective of good, my perspective of logic, my perspective of understanding. They not understanding me is because of their flaws. But we got to understand that these situations tend to be more so due to the fact that their perspective and their experience is limiting them from understanding the nuance of your position. Now, I personally have found this extremely valuable in terms of understanding the notion of perspective and experience and how that can frame who you become. Because I've grown up and with a very unique background and experience, being in the military, going to a liberal arts school, being black, being Samoan, going to the military. There's a lot of aspects of my life that gave me plenty of perspective and a lot of different avenues. And that perspective is invaluable in terms of how I currently think. That's why I consider myself a moderate. That's why I consider myself an independent. My thoughts are my own. The opinions I come up with are my own. But I hear a lot of different perspectives. And now, hey, I'm not perfect. I think sometimes when I hear something from someone else's mouth, I think it's stupid. I am not going to pretend that I'm an angel. That I don't kind of believe people who just want to be all good. Now, they do exist. I feel like I think his name is Lex Friedman. I think he is a genuine good heart. But for the most part, people are trying to manipulate you. I'm not trying to do that. I understand where my values lie, but when I engage in conversation, there's two ways I engage in it. I engage to produce further conversation, the solutions, the purpose of this podcast, and you see all these guest episodes that I have on my podcast. I listen, I have a dialogue, I have a back and forth, and we come to an understanding. That is one way I engage in conversation. The second way, I engage in more combative conversation to the point where I realize that you're not trying to understand me, so let me get through you. And even if they all maybe understand it, maybe even if they're a little bit more passive, if I feel like a point is necessary to get across, then I will be more combative and I'll be honest about it, because I feel like certain things shouldn't be negotiated, shouldn't be compromised. And those things are absolute. I think the moral spectrum is for the most part very gray, ladies and gentlemen, but the black and white is black and white for a reason, such as R word, such as rape, such as pedophilia, such as messing with your animal in very disgusting ways, such as, having love for your kids and taking care of your kids. There are absolutes in there that exist that I will not compromise. That in every situation, these will always be evil and these will always be good. And only those you shouldn't compromise. But don't misguide yourself. Do not fool yourself to thinking that you can tell what is absolute evil and absolute good. Go under the assumption, for the most part, it is gray. Honestly, that is the best course of action. Maybe you just can't really tell. You don't have a logical basis, and that's fine. I feel like you, for the most part, can tell that rape in every situation is bad. I feel like for the most part, you can tell that raising your children and loving your children is good. But if you don't know, then don't make something up. That's my personal advice in regards to that. So there's two ways I engage in conversation. I engage to understand, the most productive form of conversation, and I engage to prove wrong and to convince. But for the most part, in every conversation I engage with, I understand their perspective and their experience, and that is the most valuable part. So when I ask the question, should we try to help people who don't understand? The answer is yes. The answer is definitively yes. Because the only way we're going to change society, ladies and gentlemen, the only way we're going to make change is if we come together. Resources, helping one another, spreading the good word. We have to come together. So with that said, I want to get into our main topic. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, then this is going to be a cut down, shortened version of the full podcast. This is the most important point of the podcast, but if you want to see the full video version, then feel free to watch it on the Roku app, on Pod Nations. If you want to see the full audio version, make sure you go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify to listen to the full thing. Hope you guys enjoy this. Like and subscribe. And let's return back to the episode. Talking about the candidates. And I'm not going to spend too long. This is going to be a relatively short episode. Mindful Mondays won't be long unless the conversation and narrative is one of deep conversation. With that said, the candidates of the presidential election have gone in very interesting directions. We got Vivek Ramaswamy, that coward who has been running for president just to be a vice president, has made a mockery of politics and the position that is the president of the United States. And it's disgusting, the hypocritical nature of some people saying, oh, it's genius, him actually running as VP as a president. What if he got elected? What if this guy who was not really running to represent the people was only running to work under someone else? What if he got elected? It's disgusting behavior when you see someone make a mockery of the very thing that he criticized so blatantly. Vivek Ramaswamy is a coward. And for you running a basically praise campaign of Donald Trump the entire time, being inconsistent of all the rhetoric that you spill about the government and the Republican Party and the representatives, but never will keep it consistent with Donald Trump. Not saying a single bad word about Donald Trump. And the moment Donald Trump says a negative social media message about calling you a wolf in sheep's clothing, saying you are not MAGA, you shut your mouth. You get on your knees and say, here, Daddy Trump, I am endorsing you. I'm hopping out the race. Funny thing is, after the first panel, a lot of people were gaining praise for Vivek. Vivek has a very loyal fan base, but even they don't know what they want, because this man Vivek is now praising Trump, and they tried it's ridiculous. But after that first panel, he was getting some popularity, but then after the second panel, people were starting to see that this guy's just a snake. This guy is a wolf in sheep's clothing. This guy has been lying to the people. This guy has been manipulating the people, just like we've seen time and time again from your man, Donald Trump. Vivek, terrible candidate. And I've said Nikki Haley was better. Well, I've just been proven right. And I'll get to Nikki Haley, trust me. And before Vivek fans, I know y'all want to come at me and say, oh, you're biased, you're not being objective. I want to be very, very clear. When I learned about Vivek is the same time I learned about Nikki Haley. The only candidates that I knew of before the public Republican debates were Trump, DeSantis, Biden, and Pence. Christie, Vivek, Nikki Haley, Burgum, Hutchinson, Tim Scott. Those are all candidates that I found out at the exact same time. And after I came out that first panel, what did I think? I thought, Vivek is a performer. And I've been proven right time after time after time after time again. Now let's go to the other individual. I spoke about him a little bit. Ron DeSantis. DeSantis, you're actually a pretty good politician. DeSantis, you're actually an individual who has a track record with Florida. Whether you agree or not in terms of his policies, you can 100% say that DeSantis has shown his work. Now, I do think Vivek should get some local experience to build up his repertoire. Regardless, if you want to help the country, get some experience first. That is my honest thoughts. But DeSantis has proven his work. He's proven he's capable to push the Republican agenda to an extent. But then he went to try to become president, and let's be very clear, he is a terrible politician. He had everything going for him, every single thing going for him. He didn't know if he wanted to befriend Trump, if he wanted to be antagonistic to Trump. He didn't know what his personality was. He didn't know how to appeal to the people. He didn't know who his friends were. He didn't know where he was. And when he was on that panel, when I see him go up against Vivek and Nikki Haley, it seemed like they were just better candidates. Whether or not the track record proves that to be the case, but when you're the leader representing the people, you have to be the confident leader who's ready to make change. And DeSantis never felt like that, regardless of his track record. So it's not surprising to me that he dropped out the race. That the person who I believe was either third or fourth to start it off with, Nikki Haley, overcame him. He was the closest one to Trump at some point, and he kept on falling. And now DeSantis is endorsing Trump. All that rhetoric regarding Trump, he ended up endorsing him. Also, I hate that. I hate the aspect of people basically throwing out fluff pieces where it's like, oh yeah, this guy sucks and he did all these terrible things. Oh, I'm not a candidate. Oh, I endorsed that guy that I was just saying he sucks. That is the politics game that I despise, ladies and gentlemen. Spit up a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. I despise that. It's deceitful. It's manipulative. It's lying to my face on how you truly are. It is saying one thing but doing another. It is, oh, we are enemies in front of the cameras, but behind the cameras, we are best buds. It's disgusting behavior, ladies and gentlemen. And I hate it a lot. I hate it. I truly do. So DeSantis fell out the race. That leaves Nikki Haley. I've said a lot about Nikki Haley in the past, and I'm going to be very clear with my rhetoric right now. I have thought, and I currently think that Nikki Haley is the best Republican candidate. I have thought, and I currently think that Nikki Haley is the most capable Republican candidate that can actually beat Joe Biden. I think her ability to be a lot more moderate while keeping the Republican positions is invaluable. The compromise she's willing to engage in. The understanding of our international influence. Now, do you want to criticize Nikki Haley and some of her connections in terms of military contractors? I think that's fair. I think it's more nuanced, but I think that's fair. I think you definitely 100% shouldn't have certain stocks in certain places while you're in office, too. Fair. Very, very fair. But ultimately, in terms of a leader, in terms of a candidate, in terms of who I think will run it the best for the Republicans, it is Nikki Haley. And keep in mind, I am not a Republican. I don't agree with a lot of things that Nikki Haley says in terms of like education, for example. In terms of some of her foreign ideas, I think she's a little too aggressive in terms of what she wants to do in terms of befriending both Ukraine and Israel. But ultimately, objectively speaking, I just think she's the best and most capable candidate, leaving the final and most popular candidate, Donald Trump. Donald Trump with all the indictments. Donald Trump trying to figure out if he caused an insurrection. Donald Trump. Yeah, I personally don't like Donald Trump. I think he was not a good president. I think everything that people hate in terms of, the populist rhetoric applies to Donald Trump. And I think that his influence on inciting January 6th is unquestioned. So that's my personal opinions regarding Donald Trump. I don't really need to go far beyond that. Let's talk about the other side. We got RFK Jr., who's Democrat, ran independent, disguising himself as a Republican. I'll be honest. Now, some Democrats will vote for him, one, because they don't want to vote for Biden, and some moderates might vote for him as well. And some Republicans might vote for him as well. So I think he's in a very interesting position considering a lot of his rhetoric is very much on the right wing, I'll be honest, but there are left wing ideas as well. He can make a very interesting case. My only issue with RFK Jr. is that this whole COVID thing, I think, move on, man. Focus on what is going on in current society. If he's focused on situations that happened in the past, whether or not you agree with it, then are you really pushing anything forward? I don't really know. So that's my biggest thing for him. Cenk is an interesting one in terms of his qualification to become president due to his lineage. He has some interesting, very leftist ideals. I think he's very much capable, but he's not a part of the network that is the current politicians. He's more a part of a social media era, and it may not be enough. But I think us as social media individuals, people who are part of the new wave of understanding politics, should have a voice. And I think Cenk could be a representative of that voice, whether or not I agree with some of the things that he says. And obviously, we got Joe Biden. Joe Biden, just too old, man. Whether or not you agree that he's been pushing the country in the right direction, I think you can make a legit argument that the country is in a better situation than expected, considering we're coming off a huge pandemic. You got to keep that in mind. I know everything looks worse, but we came off a pandemic. You only can do so much. He got us out of Afghanistan, regardless of how you want to say how it was, how everything happened. His situation regarding Ukraine and Russia, he was supporting Ukraine because we don't want Russia to gain influence without getting directly involved. His stuff with Israel and Palestine is a little bit more interesting in terms of its nuance. The biggest thing that people don't like is that Joe Biden is very, very old and people think he's incompetent. I think that's a very fair thing to say as a leader of the free world, I'll be honest. His track record is what it is. His track record, I would argue, is better than anything I've seen from Trump. But if you seem incompetent, you've heard the terminology before. Perception is reality. So we got a bunch of candidates, ladies and gentlemen, that just don't seem qualified, that are incompetent, that are in weird situations. I'll be honest. Biden doesn't seem like a rightful candidate. Trump doesn't seem like a rightful candidate. DeSantis wasn't. Vivek wasn't. Who do we have? Nikki Haley, RFK Jr., Cenk. I will say that if you truly want to have a system that represents your vote, I'll preach this until the choir sings. I recommend advocating for star voting. And if you don't know what star voting is, quick rundown, it's a way of voting that makes your vote matter to the representatives that you truly want to win, not picking the lesser of two evils. Make sure you check out my podcast episode where I had one of the leaders of this star voting movement, Sarah Wolk, on to hear the full breakdown of star voting. But with that said, I appreciate you listening. How do you like me standing up and getting wilds, man? How do you like the new ways we're doing things? If you appreciate the podcast, if you want to push the conversation forward, rate it 5 stars, like and subscribe, share with all your friends. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll be back on Thursday. If not Thursday, then Saturday. Tune in 8 a.m. EST to listen to all the podcast episodes. You have a good one. Take care. And peace.
Well, check it out, y'all. We got what you need. We're all living in apartments, condos, vans. Well, dude, even you can have a studio in a box. Yes, we can help you with that right here at Blind Knowledge. We work on your budget, and we figure out your measurements. We'll get you the best sound for the best price. Let me know, 877-237-1143 or at blindknowledge.com. Yep.